If there was a better vehicle than whole life insurance, we'd be using it. We're not married to whole life insurance. It is just the best vehicle to allow you to create your warehouse of wealth, eliminate outside debt, pass on a tax-free death benefit. Like, show me the product that is all of those things and has all of the benefits of the whole life product, and then I'll be glad to move over there. I'd be happy to switch. It's not like we're married to it. The insurance is the vehicle to complete the concept.
On today's episode, we have Jared Adams. Jared Adams has a really good story about the importance of getting started with the infinite banking journey sooner rather than later. As a professional commercial airline pilot, we're going to talk about why that's so important, hear a little bit more about his story. And it's also really good to have another certified infinite banking practitioner from the Nelson Nash Institute. So I met Jared at the think tank in Orlando earlier this year. He had an incredible story. Wanted to bring him on to this episode to share his wisdom and his experiences with all of you. So, Jared, as we start every podcast, it's with two truths and a lie. I am losing. I am not good at this. So let's get that clear. Jason has been kicking my butt. And so we want to start inviting our audience members to see if they're better listeners than myself, maybe better listeners than Jason. If you guys are keeping track at home, let us know where you're stacking up, but go ahead. Jared, give us two truths and a lie. We'll guess which one is a lie.
Oh boy. So the first policy I've ever put together, the first premium was six figures or greater. The last week I hit 100 or greater in my Tesla. And yesterday I had pizza for lunch.
Okay. So your very first policy that you wrote for, was it a member or for yourself?
It was in family. It was my wife.
Okay. Boom. That one's true. Got it. Thank you. Tricked you. Second one, I ate pizza and oh, the
100 or
Tesla.
greater in my Tesla.
Yeah. I think, dude, I can't even remember what I had for breakfast.
Jeremy's hungry. He's thinking, I want pizza. That's all he's thinking. I want a pizza while I'm driving fast.
I can't even remember what I had for breakfast. So the fact that you're saying you can remember what you had for lunch, I'm going to say that's the lie.
Do you
Okay.
both have to guess before I tell you?
Yes,
Yeah.
of course, of course. Unless you want to tell me, then I'm just going to win more. That sounds good too. So I'm going to go with the policy being true. It's very specific numbers. So, just the amount of detail. You didn't seem very attached to pizza at lunch or the Tesla, but you do play this around the dinner table as we learned. So I'm going to go with the Tesla being true and the pizza being a lie.
Yeah, you're both pretty good at this.
Oh, we got it?
You both got it.
I'm on the board?
He's on the board.
All
He's
right.
on the board. Look how happy he gets. Isn't that cool?
Oh, this is better than Christmas. All right. Got it. All right. So let's get into your journey a little bit. Tell us about how you got into aviation. Let's start, there. You're a commercial airline pilot, professional pilot, but I see you got a beard. So something happened recently. So tell us a little bit about your story.
Let's see if I can walk back 26 years in a few couple of minutes. It started by, I grew up south of Buffalo, New York. So that's where I lived for 20 years. And we had a friend of the family that was a U.S. Airways pilot. I met him, obviously through the family, and I was mowing his lawn, cleaning his garage, painting his house, all those stuff to get some extra money, the tasks he didn't want to do. And then one week he said, "Hey, I'm going to pay you with a plane ride instead of a check." I said, "Okay, sounds good. I don't have any aviation in my family." So we went up to the local grass strip, hopped into his Aranca Champ, and the first time we took off, I was hooked. That was it. Where do I go do this more was the question. So I soloed at 16 and I was like, how do I keep doing this? They're like, well, you got to wait till 17 to get your license. Okay, cool. Did that. And then I was an instructor at 19, finished all the college courses, and I was on at the regional airlines at 22. So I just kept what was the next thing that I could do to keep flying to maybe get paid a little bit more, but not have to continue to pay myself. And that was just kind of the logical process. Ended up getting stuck at the regionals for about 10 years. So a little longer than expected, but it is what it is. And then hired by a major airline in 2014. And I've been there ever since.
Oh,
It was
wow.
only recently, last March, that I found out that I've got a heart issue, and that has downed me since then. And so still yet to be determined whether or not I will fly again, but that's still a bit of a gut punch to think that I may have to flush 26 years down the toilet and just go start over somewhere. But you never know what life's going to deal you. You pick it up and keep going.
Man, in the amount of passion that you have for flying, to know at that age, at 16 or 15, like, hey, this is what I want to do forever. How can I do more of it? What an amazing amount of clarity. Like a lot of people don't have that clarity. They don't know where they're going, what they want to be when they grow up, but you knew that early on. So I can't imagine last March, like that feeling. Like, so how's that journey been for you since March to now? Like maybe what has that going through grief and where have you come out now? Where do you currently stand?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an emotional roller coaster because of the passion and the how much you've poured into it, how much you've invested both in time and in money. I never got into it for the money or the fame or the whatever that is that some folks do. It was always just for the passion of the job. I loved flying. I loved bringing that to the community and being able to help people through that. So it's been an absolute gut punch, but I've got three daughters at home and they're 7, 9, and 12. And so this has been as much of a demonstration to them because they're going to replicate what I do, not what I say. So when dad gets kicked in the nuts, you pick it up and you keep going. You can't just stop and cry. You can't just, you know, pull over to the side of the road and stop for 6 months. Like, pick it up, figure it out. And so it's as much of them needing to see how you deal with this as it is for me because I've never had anything happen like this.
So when you got grounded and you had that kind of moment of clarity, for starters, I guess you had already been practicing infinite banking for a while, right? But how long you been doing it?
Yeah, we had a policy just over a year, but it was the combo. So the actual reason that I discovered the heart issue was through the underwriting of a policy. So I was about to start a policy for myself and my wife, two kind of medium-sized policies. And it was through the underwriting process that they saw a similar abnormality in my EKG that my aviation doctor had seen. My aviation doctor said, no problem, go back to work, see you in 6 months. But the life insurance folks said, if you want this policy, you're going to go get this tested further and let us know what you come up with. And I didn't think I had anything to have or any problems to hide.
Mm.
I just relatively healthy at the time, 41-year-old dude. Go ahead, let's go do the tests. So when they found that, at first I was pretty frustrated. Like I was like, how I brought this on myself, how I could have avoided this. But again, looking back now, less than a year, it's almost like a thank God moment because there's every week, maybe every month is more often at my airline where there's emails that go out that guys are passing away on an overnight. They're just on a layover somewhere, bringing home a paycheck for their family, and they don't make it home. And that could have been me. It's not a war story. Being on the road for an airline is not like war. I'm not a military dude. I don't know what that looks like, but it's really sad to see what's happening in the health picture, just in the last couple of years. And so that easily could have been me.
Jaron, thank you for sharing your heart. Like I can feel your passion for this. I actually feel that you're from south of Buffalo too, with your attitude. Like you get kicked in the nuts, you got to keep on going. That's a very northern. Like I grew up in New Jersey. It's a very northern kind of mentality, right? So
Yep.
I appreciate that you're modeling that for your girls. They are going to be better off for that kind of example as a role model. My thought was there with speak to the, I guess, the importance. Like, do you think was there something other than what already existed? 'Cause you talked about all the health changes in the last couple of years. I know
Yep.
you're alluding to something, but was there something that you feel like maybe stimulated this problem further, or was it just the not going deeper into it and taking ownership of it earlier?
It's a really good question. I never knew that there was an issue there, period. Even after going through all of this, I have zero physical limitations. So one
Mm,
of the markers that has, been a downing factor for my medical is that my ejection fraction of my left ventricle is below 40%. To give you the brief version of what that is, the oxygenated blood returns from the lungs and it goes through the left side of the heart to then get pumped to
mm-hmm,
the body. My left ventricle, the muscle is swollen to the point that it's like having a black eye. You can't squeeze the heart enough to then pump the rest of that blood throughout the entire body effectively. A normal rate is 55 to 70%. I'm at 35. So that's the downing part of this medical condition. And even to this day at 35, the doctors are like, I don't know how you don't have swollen ankles or have issues keeping, from passing out or getting lightheaded. I don't have any of that. I could go run 5, 6 miles right now if you wanted me to. So something doesn't line up and I'm still trying to figure out what that is because it's just I don't have any signs of it. I don't know where this came from and to just go, hey, yeah, you can't fly ever again. It's really weird. So still discovering.
That's yeah. I as a professional pilot myself, I can understand and empathize with the fear of that, right? So you have, like you said, 26 years. I started flying in 2011, so a little bit, more than half of your time, about 16 years or so myself. And the idea of going from everything being normal to no longer being certain that I can continue doing a passion of mine. Again, you get into aviation for flying because it is a passion. Certainly, you don't get into it for the money because, as we all know, you start off making, I think I was making less than teachers pay as a professional airline pilot my first year of flying.
Yep.
And what you're doing right now and dealing with this issue, whether it's true or not, we just know that there's something that the medical doctor has found. You have at least established your very first banking policy. And I want to talk a little bit about that security and that transition on how this has laid a foundation of perhaps comfort in your life and sort of what recommendations would you have for other people?
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy if you peel some of the layers back because even though I started our first policy for the family about, let's say about 2 years ago, I was shown the Nelson Nash book probably more like 15 years ago when
Mm.
someone said, "Hey, you're an airline pilot, you're going to make a lot of money in your career, you're going to need to protect it. Here's one way to do it." And they gave me the book and I read it and I just couldn't make it make sense. It seemed either too expensive or bad rate of return, or I never truly understood why cash, as using cash, why there was a opportunity cost for that. All of those items that he mentions in the book never really resonated with me. So, when I did that first flight when I was 15 years old, I caught it. I caught aviation. But 15 years ago, when I read that book, I did not catch IBC. It wasn't until, 3 years ago ish that I really caught IBC. And then when that happened, it was just off to the races. And just like you said, having that backboard, something that we know right now that nobody can take away from us. It's I mean, it's a solid ground to launch off of. We don't really have a ton of overhead, so to speak, because we live pretty low on the hog. We can easily pay mortgage and live like we need to and continue on, even though we're living off half of the income off a disability payment from that airline. So, there's obviously what's coming in on an income side, but then there's all of the, I call it oh crap funds. When oh crap happens, I need to know that those are available to be put in place if needed. And that policy has served as that.
How has it reframed your mission? Because now you have a very unique experience that I don't have, that Jason doesn't have, but you're actually going out and helping other members and giving them layers of protection as well. How
Yeah.
has your personal experience reframed your mission as a certified practitioner?
Yeah, that's a really good question. For clarity on the certified practitioner, I'm still technically a practitioner in training. I was accepted into the program and I'm going through that right now. I don't expect it to be long, but at the time of this recording, I'm not officially a practitioner. But when I caught this, I couldn't imagine that there wasn't more people doing it. And so as soon as I heard that and as soon as I got it, I just wanted to be a part of the crowd that was sharing this, whatever that looked like. I've done a lot of reading on the bad name that whole life insurance was given in the early 80s. How if you just talking to my dad, talk about life insurance with my dad, it's a very different picture that's painted for that generation. And obviously for, our generation, I know we're probably within 5 to 10 years of each other. I couldn't imagine not sharing that. And if my story or if what I've been through helps motivate someone, even just one person, then it's a win because I'm an open book, man. You see what you see is what you get type of a setup. I don't mind sharing what I've been through, but I also don't mind bringing up I screwed this up. I should have done this 15 years ago. I didn't need to start near the size that I did 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I could have started small and layered some policies over that decade and a half, but I didn't get it. And it is what it is.
The way that you're sharing the story, right? Like you realize the best time to plant a tree was a long time ago, right?
That's right.
Tomorrow is not promised,
Yep.
and you're sharing, that's all part of your story. And that's all going to be part of your hero journey, to be honest. Like that is going to serve you and your clients and the people that you helped get this. But I'm curious, you talked about how you caught it at 15-year-olds being a pilot. You read the book a decade plus ago and you didn't catch it. It didn't
Yep.
mean anything to you because like Nelson says, if you don't understand the problem, how could you possibly care about the solution? So for you, Why'd you catch it this time? What happened 3 years ago that was like that catalyst that said, oh, I get it?
That's a really good question. I think the biggest thing at the time was I didn't see it as capitalizing on your own funds. I didn't see it as building a lifelong, warehouse of wealth. I saw the cost of the whole year, or I'm sorry, the whole life policy up front, and I just said that's way too expensive. The whole buy term, invest the difference piece that we always get flooded with. How much cheaper that is, and how much better you can do in the stock market than you can in these policies. When you look back at it, if like I never truly did the digging on it that I should have, because once I did the digging, those concepts or those ideas are comparing apples to oranges. They're just not even close. So, I mean, the cost of it combined with the rate of return, that was what made me just put the book back on the shelf and never truly get it. But throw that back into the mix that a couple of years ago, combined with a much heavier distrust for the federal government and all things banks, that aligned with my need to prove to myself that I made the right decision a decade and a half ago. That was what made me go back into the book and go, all right, I'm going to prove to myself I made the right call. And I didn't. I was able to do more digging and
Mm,
talk to more people about this, talk to both sides. And the more I heard argument, the more it made sense to me how you can capitalize these policies for the betterment of you and keeping literally everything in house.
I appreciate
What
you
did
sharing that frame. And the frame you just shared, though, was you went back to challenge. Like, that's super curious. If anyone caught that, Jared went back to challenge his own thinking. He wasn't trying to prove someone else wrong. He's like, wait a minute, was that younger version of me? Did he know what the hell he's doing? I'm gonna go back and prove him right or wrong. But you had enough courage. Our thinking is stinking, right? Our thinking is not really thinking. We're going along with the herd, but our ego is what keeps us stuck. So we're like, yeah, I gotta be right. It's gotta everyone around me, like my family's gotta be right. My parents, my aunts, uncles, like, oh, they're all doing it this way. It's
right?
got to be the right way to do it. Like,
Yep.
why do I have to go against the grain? I don't have to be so difficult, but you had the courage in that moment to say, you know what? I don't know if I made the right choice. Let me go try to prove it. And then you weighed both sides. So that's incredible.
Yeah. That moment, Jared, that you said that you were talking to other people. Was there anything in particular where you were just going through and listening to other people's stories or their interactions or the way they implement this? Did you have a moment, like, do you remember a single instant or a day or a conversation that kind of helped you make that transition, bridge the gap, perhaps?
I don't think there was any moment, not that I can remember. I knew I had heard the concept before. I knew enough about it to talk about it at a bar, but I didn't know enough about it to speak intelligently. And, I think it might have been someone in the cockpit, that was talking about this and how it was really working well for them and how they were able to, leverage it and make a lot of other great choices from the power that it provided. And I think that might have been a catalyst into making me dive back in and prove to myself I made the right call, but I don't remember any specific moment.
Yeah. I personally, when I was looking into it, I was also skeptical, and perhaps it's, our analytical backgrounds as being pilots. So I tried to math it out, and I just couldn't find a reason not to do it, hence why I started doing it. Everything that I was reading was very similar, to your experience of this is bad, buy term, invest the rest. This is a terrible investment. And when I had that moment was this is not an investment. It's a bridge between saving and investing. It bridges the gap between the two. Really, it's just a system or a process. It's where I route my money before I go out and do my investing. And that was my moment of
Yep.
getting around and understanding this is not an investment. It bridges the gap between saving and investing. While at the same time, and showing the power of what it's doing for your family, it has all these other unique features and benefits that people kind of miss the mark on, right? Properly structured whole life insurance has really, really powerful benefits. If you were in term and you get to that age where your term expires, guess what? It's gone. You're no longer insurable, right? I saw that with my own mother. My mother, her term policy expired. When she had the term, she was diagnosed with a brain tumor. When the term expired, she had to go through, we started the process with her and had to prove that she was in remission for over a year. And then she still got table rated to start her IBC policy. But it wasn't
Wow.
the same thing with regards to like, hey, we're going to buy term and invest the rest. Oh, and by the time that I end up hitting that term, whether it be 10, 15, 20 years, and it expires. Hey, you're no longer insurable. I know that you were looking to have all of this, which death benefit really is an income replacement, right? In case something happens. That wasn't there for your family, for you anymore. It was no longer an option.
Yep. Yep. That's spot on. Yeah, the other things that I'd heard recently, I did not hear this, in the moments of discovery, but the one I heard recently that was really stuck for me was, when you're trying to compare all these different rates of return and what it looks like, are you comparing apples to apples? Are you not? The one on IBC specifically is it's got an internal rate of return, an external rate of return, and an eternal rate of return.
Mm.
And go ahead and put a number to that. You've got the internal, which is inside the policy, whatever percentage you're gaining either on dividends or interest or otherwise. The external, when you take that money and maybe loan it against your policy and then, go put it to work. And then the eternal, when you pass on a tax-free death benefit. Like, let me know how you can come up with a number that shows that percentage, because I don't know of any vehicle that shows that.
That's really cool. I've
I'm
not
definitely
heard
gonna
that
say
said like
that.
that before. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that. It's always these little nuggets of wisdom. And if it's 3 words or less, I'm really cool with that because that really helps me.
That's not a Jared original. I can't take credit for it. I heard that from someone at the think tank.
We
Yeah.
don't have to be that original. We're just telling old stories to new people, right? And we're
That's right.
doing it in our way to, and like what you guys are both talking about, being logical, being spreadsheet driven, being data driven. Like for me, it wasn't that. So like depending on who you are as a listener, I'm just speaking to our listeners. You don't have to be one way or the other. There isn't a right way to do it. It's really about your thinking and what are your wants and desires for your future self. And what are you willing to do to get there? One of my favorite quotes is if not now, when, right?
Yep.
If not you, then who? And so these are some of the questions if you're a listener, if you're either on the sidelines learning, I talk about training, teaching and testing all the time when I teach this stuff. But if you're still training, if you're still getting on the mat, learning, reading the book, maybe watching some videos and trying to figure out, is this for you? Is this something? Just hear Jared's story. Here's someone that didn't believe, and now it's protecting and providing some stability for his family because he eventually understood, hey, I've got to start improve if this works or it doesn't. That's the only way you're ever going to know. If you stay on the sidelines, watch the game, you'll end up being a spectator of everything. And you won't have the internal, external, eternal kind of rate of return that is possible for your family. So where are you really wanting to go and how are you going to get there?
Yeah, I think that's
And
really good. And you had those subconscious objections, Jared, that you were kind of getting over. But here's a question for you now. This is a true conscious objection. You're an airline pilot. I'm an airline pilot. We work a lot with other pilots. I'm sure that there are other professionals out there who have to have a medical in order to get their job. What do you say to those people who are now have a fear base of, hey, I don't even want to start this process anymore because I might find out I'm not insurable and then I lose my main source of income. And guess what? I'm the primary breadwinner. So I now have a fear, a conscious fear, more than just a subconscious objection. What do you say to other pilots after you tell your story and what it did in terms of grounding you? How do you deal with that?
those are delicate conversations. Those are not ones that I just blast off the hip with a tough question. But the question, if they're willing to hear it, and I feel like they're willing to receive, is your family willing to pay for what you didn't do? Is your family willing to pay the consequences for your hiding something? Is it worth discovery? Because, if it truly is as it should be, you know, the fear should be overtaken by the willingness that you need to take care of your family. And that's a tough one. That's not heard by
Mm,
everyone. That's in this, very macho at times, very type A personality everywhere. It doesn't matter which seat, it's a different mindset. It's a different, you have your regular doctor that you go to for regular health, and then you have your aviation medical examiner that keeps you being able to provide for your family. That dichotomy in itself is bonkers that it exists that way. And it shouldn't. But I'm not the king that swipes that pen, so I don't get to determine where that goes. But everybody knows that exists. I guess I would ask, do you really want to know what's there, or do you not? And if you don't, I can't throw darts, but I can at least ask questions. So that would be one part that I'd try to go down that path. The other path is, what would it look like had I signed on these even smaller contracts a decade and a half ago, because most of the policies that I write for folks right now, it's got a waiver of premium piece of that, as if to say, if you can't go to work, the insurance company will cover your premiums for the time that you're out of work. There may be a time right now that I'm not only getting disability from the company I'm working for, but that the insurance company is covering my premiums. So you don't know what tomorrow brings from a health status. So I would want to face those demons earlier than later and lock in that health status as quick as I can and as early as I can to know that when this system is working and the wheels are rolling down the hill, you've got a powerful tool at your hands.
Yeah, and listening to what you just said, lock in that health status today. If you do know that you're healthy today, go ahead and get started today. Like these underwriting process, it takes 4 to 6 weeks, and we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, right? So the sooner you start, the sooner you can lock this in, and the sooner that you're protected. If we just look at it from a life insurance point of view, not even the banking point of view, that level of protection, especially if you are a primary breadwinner for your family, is very important. I mean, the fact that we get to, I would say, the opportunity to use whole life as the foundation, the product by which we get to practice infinite banking is so beneficial for all of us.
Yeah, I completely agree. Another one that I stole from the think tank was if there was a better vehicle than whole life insurance, we'd be using it, because that's just we're not married to whole life insurance. It is just the best vehicle to allow you to create your warehouse of wealth, eliminate outside debt, pass on a tax-free death benefit. Like, show me the product that is all of those things and has all of the benefits of the whole life product, and then I'll be glad to move over there. I'd be happy to switch. It's not like we're married to it. The insurance is the vehicle to complete the concept. And that's really hard to get from someone that already has a distrust in that system. You got to do the research yourself. And there's also a lot of really bad information out there because there's money to be made on both sides. If you automatically just assume that whole life insurance is garbage, well, you've taken half your market and pushed them towards one other way. There's money to be made out there. You've got to make an honest introspection on what's best for your family.
I love that. And if you're a commitment phobe, right? Like if you're someone, and thank you for sharing that, Jared. If you're a commitment phobe, if you're someone who's like, hey, I got married and I don't know, it's like sometimes I'm winning, sometimes I'm losing. I don't really know if I want to make another whole life commitment. That sounds a little wild, Jason. I'll just ask anyone's listening, like, have you committed to a 30-year mortgage? How many times have you committed to a 30-year mortgage? Are you committed to a car payment? How often have you done that? And for how much of your adult life have you done that? So are you really a commitment phobe, or are you just scared you can't do this? Or you're scared that you might be wrong, right? You like start asking questions of your questions, I think is what I'm hearing Jared say. Like, hey, well, if it's not life insurance as like that's specially engineered for me specifically, what is the thing that's going to help me build that foundation to build the life that I dream of? Like, what does that look like? Is it going to be putting it in all these different buckets? Like, just start asking those questions. And I'm saying that because I have a good friend who's been watching and following and read the book. And it's like, I just don't get it, Jason. I don't want another payment. I have a bunch of my money. I have the max I can put in, 31,000 plus going into the 401k. I have money going into my IRA, right? I say he said was backdoor Roth. I have money going to my kids' 529. I have money going into an HSA. I have money going to a brokerage account. I can't afford another. He's got like 50 some thousand dollars going to all these government created plans. I was like, hey, if the government really cared about you, they would just stop taxes.
Funny how that works. I mean, for me personally, I stopped giving to the 401k. We converted what those funds were into our policy because I wanted to keep it in-house and I wanted to create the power of my own warehouse. I don't know what the taxes are going to be 20, 30 years from now. I don't know what that looks like. Same thing with the 529 plan. We were given to one of those as well. Stopped that, moved it into a juvenile policy. But Nelson would say you've got to rethink your thinking. You've got to step into some place that allows you to know what the problem is so that you can then find out what the solution is. And all these qualified accounts, why did they even exist? The government created the problem and now they've created the solution. I don't bite off on that. That's a hard one. That's a hard sell for me too.
Yeah, we took the same thing. My nephew's 529 plan. I started one for him over a decade ago. I got pretty involved in infinite banking. I saw that we could use the strategy, like the purpose of a 529 plan by liquidating it and creating a juvenile policy just as you have, right? Because now he actually can do the exact same thing that he was going to do with the 529 plan, but with no regulations attached to it because
That's
it's
right.
his banking policy. If he doesn't want to go to college, there's no penalties. If he wants to instead use that cash value to start a business, down payment on a home, or get married, by all means, like that's his money. And as we look at real estate and the rising cost of real estate, how incredible is it to be able to use that money to instead give your child the down payment on their first property? That right there, in and of itself, is reason enough, in my opinion, to liquidate the 529 plan and start using it for banking. Everyone say, "Oh, Jeremy, but we have all these other, tax benefits and everything." But what to Jason's point, if the government really cared about you, to get rid of the taxes.
And the part that often gets overlooked on those juvenile policies is, there's this kind of idea behind, and I think it's rooted in the 529 style plans, that it has to be spent on a certain type of expense. That's not the case. Or that it can only be, at a certain point you have to turn it over. Well, that's not the case either. Like or at least for my policies for the kiddos, like I would love to turn them over to them at some point. Whenever they can make the monthly or annual payment and they know the information, I will
Mm,
gladly turn the policy over to them. But that might be, we all know how different kids are. That may be 20 for one of them, and it may be 40 for the other one. Like I'm not turning these over to them until I know that they know how to harness that power and what they've got at their hands, but also how to use it. So, the control piece of that, you don't get that with a 529 plan. Well, some folks will say, well, you can roll it over into a Roth. Okay, well, yeah, that's limited at the Roth, limit for the year up to 35,000 for that individual throughout the life. And then you just put it in a qualified plan for 35, 36 years. Like you can't touch that money for 35 years. Don't tell me that that's a good option B for the 529.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we're all about taking control of our wealth, right? Not delegating our wealth. And if you truly care about building a warehouse of wealth, as you mentioned before, you need to take back control. And the only way you can take back control is to stop delegating. Stop giving your money over to the advisors or stop giving your money back to Uncle Sam. Stop putting it in the financial prisons that so many people believe because some advisor out there who we all understand BlackRock and Vanguard and all these big organizations are the bad guy, but we keep giving them the money. We keep delegating our wealth to them. So at what point are you going to take back control, take back the ownership, and give yourself the freedom?
Yep. Spot on. Completely agree.
So,
and just for everyone listening, right? We're here with Jared Adams, WealthWise Banking Podcast, Jeremy Huggins, myself, Jason Sipple. And we are not, by the way, we are not attorneys. We are not financial advisors. We are not CPAs. We are none of those things. We are certified infinite banking practitioners, which is a choice, by the way, because we don't have to be that certification. I know Jared said, in all honesty, because this is the kind of integrity this guy has, that he is not yet a practitioner, but he will be. He's going through the course now. He passed the interview, which is a little bit, if you pass the interview, you don't think you're going to get in. Like I
It's
really was sure
intimidating.
that Carla wasn't going to, Mr. Laura was not going to let me in. I wasn't sure. But anyhow, so if you guys are all here listening to this, we're just telling you what we've done in our personal lives. We're telling you how we think about things. And if you're hearing this for the first time, all we're saying is if you don't understand it, you don't understand it yet. Give yourself permission to challenge your own thinking if your current thinking hasn't served your outcome. If you're where you're at now, like with the majority of the people I talk to, and they're telling me that, hey, I am working harder. I am making more money than I ever have in my life. And it just doesn't seem like I can ever get ahead. And it's because of you have not yet thought, what is my money philosophy? What is my money philosophy? Like I'm sure you have one as a parent, as maybe an entrepreneur, as your spiritual self, for your health. But what is your financial one? And a great one that Don Blanton, he's Circle of Wealth, another great leader in our thinking. But his, in the front of his book, Personal Economic Model, says, and it's the one I've adopted, there's more to be had from avoiding the losses than there is from picking the winners. Think about that. More to be had from avoiding the losses than picking the winners. Don't go to try to be the Smash Brothers from the Oakland A's. I'm just going to date myself a little bit and try to hit everything out of the park on every single swing. Play small ball. Set yourself up with a way where you can build something slowly over time. This is not a get rich quick that we're all talking about. I just want to bring it back to the simplest form of this. This is about you deciding that you want control and that you want to know what the outcome is and that you're in control of that outcome. Because at the end of the day, we're only mentoring you to take ownership of this. None of us are going to bank for you. None of us want to. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to do this job for someone else. It's hard enough to do it for ourselves, to make sure we're paying attention to our business, that's sustainable, that we're setting up in a way that it's serving our family and our mission and our goals. So
Yeah, I think one thing I do want to highlight here is you cannot wait, right? If you feel as though you don't have enough education, guess what? It's a 4 to 6 week process. At least start the process. Spend that next 4 to 6 weeks talking to Jared, talking to Jason, talking to myself, talking with someone who's actually knows how to set this up correctly and do it for you, right? Like tailoring them to you. That process of 4 to 6 weeks is plenty of time for you to do self-education, do sanity checks, try to poke holes. But the idea of waiting, because tomorrow is never promised. The only thing that's promised in life really is what? Death and taxes, right?
That's right.
So you are going to get taxed and you are going to die. Like that's it.
what?
We don't
Nobody
know.
told me.
Yeah, we put all this money into other types of insurance, homeowners insurance. We put it into our vehicle insurance, like renters insurance. We put all this stuff in case something happens with somewhere else. But why not start doing it just simply for the death benefit today for something that you do know that will happen in the future, but have it tailored in a way for banking so that way you can use it while you're alive. Use it today to optimize your cash flow.
Spot on. You know, the book Nelson wrote, the 92-page book, that's a preview for a 10-week course, right? So while you're getting that application rolling and moving in that right direction, spend 10 weeks to learn about it. Like do the deep dive, go on both sides. Like we're not saying just talk to practitioners, but I think if you really want the source of truth on infinite banking, the practitioner is going to be your best source. And that can be found at the infinitebanking.org website. You can find your practitioner that's closest to you.
Jared, you have an incredible story from your passion for flying, and I'm looking forward to hearing the win when you come back out and they say, "Hey, you know what? You're okay. You figured it out. You found the solution." Because there's a solution out there, brother. If you
There
can still
is.
go run 5 to 6 miles, like God has a plan for you. I don't know what it is. You don't know what it is. We're not capable of understanding the plan, but we're gonna keep doing our best, and that's what you're doing. So how do people find you?
The best way is through our website. So I'm linked up with, the practitioner in the Atlanta area named John Urbick. We've got a website called flightpathfinancial.com. And through the contact us page, you can sign up to talk to either of us for a free consultation, or you can also find us on we've got a podcast as well called Creating Tailwinds that definitely follows that aviation mindset and, some of Nelson's teaching on how to create your own tailwinds. That's on Apple and Spotify.
Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming on today. And as we kind of wrap things up, we just want to remind all of our listeners, you're already in banking.
You're just not the banker yet.
All right. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Thanks for joining us on WealthWise Banking. If today's episode inspired you, please subscribe, leave a review, and give us a like. It's a simple way to help others discover these empowering strategies and join our community. Together, we're building a network of people who believe financial freedom is within everyone's reach. Remember, financial independence is about making every dollar work for you, one step at a time. Until next time, stay inspired, stay in control, and keep building your legacy the wise way.